Hey folks, David here with Tomb Runners Designer Diary number 6. I've got an actual light set up today. Figured I'd get some production value going on this because this is my day job, so I should make things look good. I had put some effort into this. I still got to do some work on my background. I'm just sitting at my desk, and I'm going to try to make this space look a little more studio-like as we go forward here, but still in the early stages of this whole endeavor on YouTube. So today I want to talk about character creation, specifically with things like alignment and what that looks like in Tomb Runners and why I did not put alignment in the book at all. So when you create your character, you choose a heritage. And the heritage gives you a character creation bonus of HP, extra SP, stress points, an extra feat at character creation, or an extra luck at downtime. And they're named things like adaptable, vulnerable, lucky, and hardy. Pretty universal traits that kind of tell you a little bit about what they do. But also they give a picture of the society and the people you come from. So if you're playing, say, you could be a human or a dwarf or an elf or a tiefling, whatever fits your flavor, but you can still get the mechanical bonus that you'd like. And the name of the mechanical bonus gives a little bit of information about your background. So if you're a hardy dwarf, stereotypical dwarf, very hardy, very tough, then, that's a very, people understand what that looks like. But if you're an adaptable dwarf, that kind of paints a little different picture of what the dwarf society you come from looks like. Maybe they're not the traditional dwarves that live in the mountain. Maybe they were forced out of that and they had to adapt and move to different lands, that kind of idea. So I wanted the character creation and the feat or the heritage choice to be fully open and free to whatever character idea you have in mind. So you can be a traditional, like a lucky halfling, or you could be a lucky human, or a lucky half-orc, whatever you want. And then moving on to the second part of character creation is jobs. Jobs are purely geared towards giving you something to do in downtime, an extra activity or a boost to a standard activity in downtime. Like if you're a noble, you make more money for working. If you're an enchanter, you can craft magic items instead of just regular items. If you are an engineer, you can craft simple machines and traps and stuff like that. Alchemists can make stronger potions or potions that get an extra use. Most potions are one use. Alchemists get 2 wear on their potions, so they make flavored, basically. They make 2 every time they get extra potion out of all their creations. They're just better at it. And then the only one that's not written as a downtime thing, but actually still ties into it, is the soldier job. So if you're a soldier, the only bonus it gives you is 2 extra inventory slots. Now you only have 5 total, including weapons that you're holding or wearing. Your armor doesn't count, but everything else on you counts towards that 5. So having 7 slots for items, it gives you obviously more versatility in adventuring phase. You can carry more stuff, but in downtime, it's actually a huge bonus because the key thing that you're going to do every downtime is sell loot. So if you can only carry 5 things, including your gear you're using, most characters are only going to carry 1 or 2 items to sell. But a soldier, he can carry 3 or 4 on average after, his equipment he's using. So that ends up being a huge bonus in downtime and character advancement and progression because he's selling more stuff, or she. They're selling more stuff, so a smart player will take more stuff into adventuring phase, be more aggressive with the use of it, not concerned with the wear and tear and degradation of their gear. And then they'll just have more space to loot and bring stuff back. And a smart soldier job character can level up a little faster than pretty much anyone else, if depending on how you roll your loot for your players, how generous you are. And that brings us to alignment. So alignment in Tomb Runners does not exist. Characters are not inherently good, bad, neutral, chaotic, evil, none of that. I firmly believe in all RPGs that alignment should come out in play for PCs. Don't tell me you're evil. Show me at the table. Do things that are evil and act consistently like that. But also alignment a lot of times just ends up being a convenient excuse to not think about your character's actions. And it's an easy fallback to just behave a certain way or to have a one-dimensional character. Part of the fun of RPGs is having, your heroic good characters maybe doing bad things sometimes to get to their goal, or the opposite. You have a bad character that, something convinces them to do the right thing. And that's way more compelling than just having a one-dimensional, I'm lawful good, I'm a paladin. Don't say that, show that. And also with NPCs, it's really boring to just say, oh, they're a goblin, they're evil. Make them more interesting. Don't have one-dimensional NPCs or one-dimensional species even. And that brings us to the other thing I wanted to talk about, and that is the whole idea, the modern thought that maybe all this murder hobo gameplay, maybe that's problematic inherently because of the nature of you're just killing indiscriminately and taking stuff. And there's some truth to that. And some of that falls into the alignment discussion previously, but also I'm trying to keep Tomb Runners walking the fine line of feeling gritty and low fantasy and dangerous, but also a little bit light. I'm trying to keep it almost cartoony. That's why the cover art has the kind of Scooby-Doo face on the character. It's there's a tone I'm trying to strike with this game that is kind of, I'm not going to say Munchkin. I'm not going to go that far, but it's not also grimdark. It's somewhere in the between space where it's just lighthearted fun without being goofy and silly and without being, overly serious and kind of cringy grimdark like a lot of OSR games do. That's why I really appreciate the games that go in more of the odd, weird, psychedelic direction, because those games are fun. They're just... And fun is kind of a meaningless word. People can find fun in anything, but those games have a tone that says, don't take this too seriously. And I really appreciate that. So I'm trying to find that right balance tonally. That's why none of the art, as I mentioned, depicts any extreme violence. Some of it does depict violence. There are, spells hitting characters or characters covered in what is obviously like acid or something. A dragon shooting a fireball or shooting a burst of flame at the party. This beholder is zapping this character with lightning, and you see a skeleton. But that's very cartoony violence. And the back cover has a little more realistic drawing, but it's a skeleton being stabbed with a spear, so nothing's really happening to it. And he's raising a sword at the guy back. And that implies a certain level of violence and hostility. But I really want Tomb Runners to be a game that you can play with all ages. I don't know if the right term is PG-13, somewhere around there, or PG. But basically, in a world where we have characters from all possible media in Fortnite with assault rifles shooting each other, I feel okay putting out a game where you're, going into tombs to fight monsters and beasts and dragons and undead in a fantasy make-believe, dice game. So I think that's an okay tone to still strike, despite people's reservations on the whole idea of dungeon crawl, murder hobo play. And especially in the OSR space, I think this will be a unique offering tonally. And of course, people could take the game and do whatever they want with them. The system is so open and free form and inspires universal creativity in every aspect that if you want to run, the grittiest, darkest, low fantasy adventures with Tomb Raider system as your rules, you could do that. And, who's going to stop you? Or if you want to run, Adventure Time, if you want to run an Adventure Time story with Tomb Raiders, it works great for that. That would be awesome. I'd love to hear that. So that's just a little bit of talk about character creation, alignment, my thoughts on that, races, species, the whole murder hobo gameplay of a dungeon crawl. And actually, I didn't touch on it. The name of the game also kind of leads to the tone I'm going for. Instead of crawling through a dungeon slowly, I want it to be action packed and high paced adventuring. That's why it's called Tomb Runners. You're getting in and out fast, hopefully safely, and it's kind of more of a heist than a dungeon crawl. That's kind of the concept there, and I hope that connects with people. Hopefully people appreciate this approach, and I think the art does a really good job of conveying that, and I hope the writing does as well. There's not much flavor text in this game, and I need to write up another couple pages on the Tomb Realms as the world, the setting I'm going to call it, is and hopefully in that writing I can convey that tone a little better, and get people in the right mindset for what kind of game I want it to be, and then take it, make it your own. Take what you like, change what you don't. Don't change the rules. I mean, of course you can, and people do house rule everything, but I wrote the rules. Hopefully they work for you. They hopefully are comprehensive. I don't want you to read the book and then be like, well, how does this work? Play the game as written. It's simple, and it's less than 1,000 words, so it's not a ton to learn, or it's not a big ask to follow the rules and figure out the intent of the system and the pace of things like resource expenditure and recovery and stuff like that. I think that is going to be the hard part for players that aren't familiar with narrative games is this is a game where you just run through a dungeon fighting encounter after encounter, and it's not. And I need to also convey that for GMs. This is a game where you might have 1 or 2 encounters, and then you need to have downtime. And downtime is a significant break away from adventuring. That's why I really want to stress tombs in this game are not generally going to be giant dungeons, unless you're going to have multiple adventures in the same dungeon going deeper each time, which would be that's a cool way to do it. But also, I want this game to be about like singular exciting encounters. You go into a tomb or a shrine or a cave, and it's one big fight with a cool enemy. That's really... I think for players and GMs, it's easier to approach. It's more exciting. It's more fun to run that kind of adventure than, okay, I'm going through another room in a dungeon. What's this one? Okay, there's 3 skeletons in this one. Next room, okay, there's 2 skeletons and kobold. Okay, we'll do that for 4 hours. That's a little worn out at this point. Tomorrow I want to talk about OSR play versus narrative play, why that's a scary word for many OSR players, despite the fact that I think a lot of them don't realize they're already engaging in narrative play and creative play. And a little preview on that, I think the whole idea of OSR players preferring player-driven gameplay and avoiding mechanics because they see mechanics as a fail state. A lot of OSR players think that combat's a fail state because it's so deadly, and if you're in combat rolling dice, you messed up. That's narrative play. You're describing what your character is doing to avoid, danger. That's narrative play. So that's all. I'm going to take some hot tea for my throat. Appreciate you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.